The Forgotten Oath. The Black Haven was silent, too silent. The humming of machines that once filled the halls had faded, leaving only the distant echo of dripping water and the slow, steady pulse of flickering red lights. Smoke still hung in the air from the Helix infiltration, casting shifting shadows on the steel walls. Frank sat by the dim glow of a shattered console, his mask pulled halfway down, his breathing heavy. The bruises on his face told the story of the war they barely survived. Across the room, Annie tended to a small gash on her arm, her hands trembling but her eyes sharp, alive with something new. Then, footsteps. Slow, heavy, purposeful. Elias emerged from the shadows. His black coat trailed across the metallic floor, and his weathered mask reflected the flicker of emergency lights. But this time, his posture was different, more burdened, more human. "Frank," he said, his voice low, aged, almost haunted. "You've seen what Helix can do, but you still don't understand what they truly are." Frank looked up, silent. Annie straightened beside him. Elias stopped in front of a sealed steel door, one that no one had dared to open. With a hiss, he pressed his gloved hand against a biometric scanner. The door shuddered, gears grinding, and slowly opened into a chamber filled with dust and forgotten files. Inside, hundreds of old tapes, papers, photos, each marked with a single emblem, a black raven across a silver circle. "The Raven Division," Elias said, removing his mask. His face was scarred, one eye pale from an old burn. "Before there was Helix, before your father became a name in the dark, there was us. The first generation of hidden heroes." He reached for an old photograph and handed it to Frank. It was worn and faded, but the image was clear enough. Elias, younger, standing beside the Raven himself, and Frank's father. Frank's breath caught. "That's my father, with you." Elias nodded slowly. "Your father wasn't just a hero. He was the one who stopped the first Helix uprising. We were trained by the Raven himself, to fight what the government couldn't see, to protect what they didn't believe in." He looked away, eyes distant. "But everything came at a price. The Raven warned us, the moment you fight the darkness too long, it starts fighting inside you." Annie stepped closer. "What happened to them? To the Raven, to your team?" Elias exhaled. "Helix happened. They turned some of our own. The program that created us was infiltrated from within. The Raven disappeared after a mission. Your father took command, but the world turned its back on us. The government erased our existence." He paused, walking toward a metal cabinet and unlocking it. Inside lay a small, black box engraved with strange runes. "Your father's final mission," Elias said. "He was protecting this. A memory core, something Helix wants desperately." Frank stared at it, his pulse quickening. "What's inside?" Elias looked him dead in the eye. "The truth about Project Mirrormind, and the weapon your father refused to finish." An eerie silence filled the room. Annie's gaze darted toward the core, curiosity and fear mixing in her expression. "A weapon?" Elias shook his head. "Not just a weapon, Annie. A system that could rewrite thought, bend the will of nations. Your father destroyed his research to keep it from falling into Helix's hands. That's why they killed him." Frank clenched his fists. The fire in his eyes reignited. "Then I'll finish what he started. I'll destroy them all." Elias turned sharply. "No, boy. That's what they want. Anger makes you predictable. You must learn control. You think strength is in your fists, but true power," he tapped his temple, "lies here." For a long moment, no one spoke. The red lights blinked, the old tapes hummed faintly, and the chamber seemed to breathe with the weight of forgotten ghosts. Then Elias placed a hand on Frank's shoulder, firm, steady, and filled with something deeper than command. "You are your father's son. But you are also the next generation. The world doesn't need another soldier, it needs a thinker, a shadow they can't predict." Frank looked up, meeting his gaze. "Then teach me." Elias's lips curved into a faint smile. "I already am." As they left the chamber, Annie lingered behind, her eyes fixed on the glowing memory core. The strange runes pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat, alive. And in that moment, she heard something, a whisper, distant, almost human. "Annie." Her breath caught. The lights flickered violently. The whisper came again, this time clearer. "Find me." The door slammed shut. Annie turned, eyes wide with fear and wonder. Somewhere deep inside the haven, something had awakened, and the story of the hidden heroes had just crossed into a place beyond the known world. The chamber door sealed shut with a hiss, leaving Annie in dim light and silence. Her heartbeat echoed louder than the machines, each thump mixing with the faint pulse of the memory core. She reached out slowly, her fingers trembling just inches from its surface. The core responded, its symbols glowed brighter, shifting in rhythm with her touch. "Annie!" The voice again. Softer this time. Clearer. She froze. Her throat went dry. It wasn't just a recording. It sounded alive. "Who's there?" she whispered. Static buzzed through the room. The screens flickered, and the faint outline of a man appeared on one of the shattered monitors, fuzzy, incomplete, like a ghost made of code. "Annie," the voice repeated. "Don't be afraid." Her knees weakened. The tone, the warmth, the familiarity, she knew that voice. "Dad." For a moment, everything stopped. The system flickered harder, images flashing, blueprints, battle footage, a younger version of the Raven standing beside her father. His voice trembled through layers of distortion. "If you're hearing this, it means I failed to destroy Mirror Mind. Helix has evolved. But so must you." Tears welled in Annie's eyes as she pressed closer. "Dad, where are you? Are you alive?" But the projection began to glitch, words breaking apart like shattered glass. The core pulsed violently, a wave of light surging through the room. The temperature dropped. The power systems around her flickered, alarms blaring softly in the distance. Then, silence again. The glow faded, leaving only the faint hum of dying energy. The message was gone. Annie stood frozen, tears cutting lines down her cheeks. The air smelled of ozone and old dust. Behind her, a shadow appeared in the doorway. "Annie!" Elias's voice broke through. "What are you doing here?" She turned sharply, clutching the core against her chest. I heard him. My father. He spoke to me." Elias frowned. "That's impossible. The memory cores were encrypted decades ago. He told me to find the mirror's heart." At those words, Elias went still. The color drained from his face. "Who told you that?" he asked, his tone dark, fearful. "Find the mirror's heart. What does that mean?" Annie cried. "I said, it was my father." Elias stepped closer, lowering his voice. "That phrase, it's not supposed to exist anymore. Mirror's heart wasn't a location, it was a failsafe. Something your father created in case Helix broke containment." "Failsafe?" Annie asked, confused. "For what?" Elias's eyes hardened. "For himself." Frank entered then, dirt still smeared on his jaw, his energy raw and restless. "What's going on?" Elias turned toward him slowly. "Your father's consciousness might not be gone, Frank. He may have stored part of himself inside Mirror Mind." Frank's eyes widened. "You mean he's alive?" "Not alive," Elias corrected grimly. "Preserved. But unstable. If Helix reaches the mirror's heart first, they could weaponize his mind. Turn your father into the very thing he fought against." The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Annie gripped the core tighter. "Then we find it first." Elias studied her, her eyes burning with the same fire her father once had. "It won't be easy. The path to Mirror's heart lies through Helix's strongest stronghold, the Citadel of Glass. A fortress built in the middle of nowhere, protected by something far worse than soldiers." Frank straightened. "Then we train harder. We're done hiding." Elias's mouth curved into a grim smile. "That's exactly what your father said before the last war." He turned away, activating a hidden console on the wall. The floor began to shift, revealing a spiral staircase descending deeper underground. "If you're serious, both of you must face what your father did, the trials of the Raven Division. Only then will you understand what it truly means to be a hidden hero." Annie exchanged a look with Frank, half fear, half determination. Below them, a cold wind blew up from the dark stairwell. The sound of gears and ancient mechanisms filled the space. Frank took a deep breath, lowering his mask. "Then let's begin." Elias's eyes gleamed in the flickering red light. "Remember, Maccury's, nothing comes for free. Every truth has its price." And as they descended into the darkness, the faint hum of the memory core reignited, this time whispering a single, chilling line. "The heart remembers everything, even the end." The trials of the Raven division. The staircase spiraled into darkness like a throat-swallowing light. The deeper they descended, the colder it grew. Every step echoed off the walls, blending with the low hum of hidden machines. Frank led the way, his gloved hand brushing against the metal railing slick with moisture. Annie followed, silent, her mind replaying her father's voice again and again. At the bottom, they reached a massive chamber carved into the rock, ancient yet advanced. Faded insignias of the Raven division marked the steel doors ahead. In the center of the room stood Elias, already waiting. "This place," he said, his voice echoing through the hollow air, "was where the first generation of hidden heroes were born, and where many of them died." Annie's eyes darted around. The walls were lined with holographic statues, frozen images of men and women in masks, names engraved beneath them. But most of those names were scratched out. Frank exhaled slowly. "So this is where the Raven trained you?" Elias nodded. "Yes. The trials are meant to destroy everything you think you are, so that only the truth remains." He walked toward a control panel embedded in the floor. "There are 3 stages. Survival. Fear. Truth." Annie frowned. "Truth." Elias met her eyes. "The hardest one of all." With a flick of a switch, the chamber began to shift. Walls split apart, forming 3 massive corridors lit by pulsing red light. The air vibrated as the sound of hidden machinery roared to life. Frank stepped forward. "I'm ready." Elias's gaze hardened. "No, Frank. You're never ready. That's the point." The first trial began. Phase 1. Survival. The moment Frank entered the corridor, the floor vanished beneath him. He plunged into freezing water, gasping as bright blue light rippled through the tank. Dozens of mechanical drones whirred to life around him, training bots left by the Raven himself. Their metallic voices echoed, "Adapt or drown." Frank's instincts kicked in. He held his breath, twisting underwater, striking with precision. His fists met steel, sparks flying through the blue current. But the bots kept coming, faster, stronger. Every movement burned his muscles, every second clawed at his lungs. Still he fought. Not for himself, but for Annie. For his father. Finally, the last bot sank into silence. Frank emerged, drenched, gasping, his eyes burning with resolve. Across the chamber, Annie's trial had begun. Phase 2. Fear. Annie stepped into a mirrored room, endless reflections stretching into infinity. The door sealed behind her. "Fear," said a voice overhead, Elias's, distorted and distant. The weapon Helix used best. The mirrors shimmered, and her reflection changed. One by one, her mirrored selves began to move differently, staring at her, whispering her doubts. "You'll never be like him. You're just a child. You'll only hold Frank back." Her heart raced. "Stop." The reflections grinned. The room darkened. Shadows coalesced into forms, her father's silhouette among them. "Annie," it said softly, "you weren't strong enough to save me." Tears welled up in her eyes. She shook her head violently. "You're not real. You're not him." Then she remembered his words from the core, "Don't be afraid." Annie closed her eyes, forcing her breathing to slow. The fear whispered again, but this time she didn't fight it. She listened, accepted it. When she opened her eyes, the mirrors shattered. The fear was gone. Elias's voice returned, calm and steady. "Well done." Phase 3. Truth. Frank and Annie met again in a dark chamber filled with lightless smoke. In the center stood a single chair and a holographic projection, one that flickered to life the moment they entered. Their father's face appeared. Frank froze. "No, this can't be." "This isn't him," Elias said softly. "It's the final test." The hologram spoke. If you wish to be what I was, you must let go of who I am. Frank's jaw tightened. I won't forget you. Then you'll never rise, the voice replied. Annie reached for Frank's hand. He's right. The past made us, but we can't live inside it forever. Frank trembled, torn between pain and purpose. Slowly, he closed his eyes, took a breath, and released his grip on the memory of that final night. His father's scream, the explosion, the emptiness that followed. The hologram smiled faintly. Now you are ready. The smoke cleared. The walls of the chamber shifted, revealing an emblem burning on the far wall. The Raven division. The price of heroism is the soul. Elias stood at the entrance, pride flickering in his weary eyes. You've both done what few could. But remember, these were only the first trials. The real test begins when you face the world above. Frank's fists clenched. Then we'll be ready. Annie's gaze lingered on the emblem. For the first time, I believe that. Elias turned away, the faint sound of gears rising as the chamber reset behind them. Good, he said quietly. Because the world has already started to change, and Helix has just made their next move. The lights went out. A storm raged above New York's skyline, thunder cracking over the metallic gleam of the Helix towers. Lightning flashed across the night, reflecting off the mirrored structure hidden among the city's tallest buildings, the Citadel of Glass. To the world, it was a research facility. To the few who knew the truth, it was a fortress of nightmares. Frank stood on the rooftop of a nearby skyscraper, wind whipping through his jacket, mask glinting faintly beneath the lightning. His heartbeat thudded in his ears. Behind him, Annie adjusted a small communication earpiece, her sharp eyes fixed on the Citadel through a pair of binoculars. Elias crouched between them, a digital map glowing across his wrist. You both remember the layout. Level 12 is your target. That's where the core server of Miramind is hidden. In and out, quiet, clean, unseen. Frank nodded. And if we're seen? Elias's eye hardened. Then the mission dies with you. For a moment, only the storm answered. Annie broke the silence. When's the last time anyone made it out of there alive? Elias didn't answer. He simply closed his map and stood. You're not the first to try, but maybe the first who's ready. The words lingered, heavy with history. Frank adjusted his gloves, took a deep breath, and jumped from a ledge. His grappling line hissed through the air, catching on the Citadel's metallic frame. Annie followed seconds later, landing beside him like a shadow. The walls of the Citadel shimmered with embedded light, translucent, beautiful, and deadly. Motion sensors blinked faintly in the rain. Inside the building, the halls were eerily silent. The floors gleamed like ice, and mirrored panels reflected their every move. It was like walking through a maze of their own reflections, hundreds of versions of themselves staring back, distorted, unfamiliar. Elias's voice crackled in their ears. Remember, Helix built this place to disorient. Every reflection, every sound, every silence is part of their defense. Trust your instincts, not your eyes. As they advanced deeper, Annie's attention caught on a flicker in the glass. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw something, a figure moving parallel to her reflection. She stopped, eyes narrowing. "Frank," she whispered. "There's something." Before she could finish, the lights dimmed. The mirrors rippled. And from the walls, shapes began to emerge, human in form but hollow in the eyes. Helix's specters. Synthetic soldiers designed to mimic human thought and movement, emotionless reflections of whoever they fought. Frank's reflection stepped forward, identical in every way except one, its eyes burned white. Helix learned from the Raven's trials. Elias's voice came urgently. "These things fight like you, think like you. Don't play defense, outsmart them." Frank lunged, his movement mirrored by the clone. The sound of fists striking glass echoed through the chamber. Every blow felt like hitting himself, precise, brutal, merciless. Annie spun into action, throwing a series of coded discs that sparked across the mirrored floor. Her reflection dodged each one before counterattacking. The air shimmered with kinetic force. "They're adapting too fast," she shouted. Elias typed furiously on his end, overriding systems remotely. "I'm diverting the sensors. Just hold them off another 30 seconds. Frank's clone pinned him against a wall. Its mask cracked slightly, revealing a flicker of mechanical bone beneath, a fusion of metal and flesh. Frank's rage boiled. He slammed his head forward, shattering the reflection's visor, then drove a knee into its chest. "Not so perfect anymore," he growled. The mirrors pulsed, and suddenly the clones froze, mid-motion, twitching. "Now!" Elias shouted. "Take the left corridor, hurry!" They sprinted down the hallway, hearts pounding. Alarms blared overhead, red lights flashing across the reflective glass. The building seemed alive, watching. At the end of the corridor, they found the main lab. Dozens of glowing cylinders lined the walls, each one filled with blue liquid. Inside, human figures, suspended, motionless. Annie's breath caught. "Are those—" "Yes," Elias said grimly, watching through their cameras. "Test subjects. Failed carriers of mirror mind. Helix has been trying to perfect consciousness transfer." Frank clenched his fists, his stomach twisting. "They're experimenting on people?" Elias's silence said enough. Then, something on the central console caught Annie's eye. A digital panel labeled Mind Echo, Subject RM. She froze. R.M. Raven Maccury. Frank's chest tightened. "My father." Elias swore softly under his breath. "Get out of there now." But Annie's hand was already hovering over the console. "If his consciousness is in the system, we can find him." "Annie, no." She pressed the key. The lights flared white. The cylinders shook violently. A surge of digital static ripped through the comms. Elias's voice vanished. Then, the monitors came alive with a single image. Their father's face. Faint, ghost-like, staring directly at them. "Frank." "Annie." The voice was soft, digital yet human, echoing from every speaker. "You shouldn't have come here." The glass around them began to crack. The clones reactivated. The citadel itself started to pulse as though the entire building had awakened. Frank grabbed Annie's arm. "We're leaving now." She looked back one last time, tears mixing with rain. The holographic image of their father smiled faintly. "The heart remembers everything." The ceiling exploded in a shower of glass and lightning. And as the siblings leapt into the storm, the citadel of glass roared behind them, half alive, half awake, and no longer under Helix's full control.